Now, one thing that's kind of important to do in 4.3 day 1 is to start identifying some positive and negative values of the different trig ratios contained within the quadrants. So if you'll remember how we label quadrants, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now the reason 1 starts out here and goes around this way is because 1 has positive x and y values, and that makes it, once we get to this one, that's a 90-degree angle rather than a 0 degrees, so it's already kind of starting to turn that way, and so we just kind of sweep the rest of the way through. Now, what I've got here for each of these quadrants is I've indicated that, all right, the first quadrant has x positive, y positive, second one has x negative, y positive, and so on. So what we're going to do is go through and identify for each one of these which of these signs are positive and negative. So let's start with each one of them. Well, the first one's easy because if x and y are both positive, and we know that r is always positive, then there's no other option than for all of these to be positive. So what I would say about this first quadrant is that all 6 trig ratios are positive. It's a little different as we go around here. As you'll see, when we're going around here, the different pairs, when I say a pair, I mean that's a pair, and that's a pair. In each one of these quadrants, we are going to have a pair that is negative. The other ones are going to be positive. So let's look at this one in particular. We start here with, there's going to be a pair that's positive, and then there's going to be, a couple pairs that are negative. So let's start with finding out which one is positive. Now, in this case, we have in quadrant 2, the y value is positive. Now, if you look up here, tangent has y, sine has y, but the only ones that are going to be positive in this case are going to be sine and cosecant, because if y is positive and we know that r is always positive, that means that both sine and cosecant are going to be positive. So that's the positive pair from quadrant 2. Now the other two are going to be negative pairs, cosine secant and tangent cotangent. All of these, tangent and cotangent, all of those are going to be negative, because just to let you know how that works is, all right, cosine, x is negative divided by r, which is positive, that makes a negative. Tangent, y is positive, x is negative, so positive over a negative makes a negative. And of course, their reciprocals are going to be the same as well. Let's move to quadrant 3. Now, the way that we get positives for quadrant 3, you'll notice that both of them are negatives, so the only way to get positives from a negative is if you have 2 negatives. So tangent is opposite over adjacent, or y over x, both of them being negative. And so what's going to happen there is that tangent and cotangent are going to be positive in this quadrant. The other ones, x over r, that's going to be a positive over a negative, so that's negative. Sine is y over r, negative over a positive, so those are also going to be negative. So that means that in the third quadrant, sine and cosecant, of course, go together, and then cosine goes with secant, and so those ones are going to be the negative pairs for the third quadrant. And it's pretty easy to narrow down what this last one is going to be. We've used one example in each, and so in the fourth quadrant, since we have y as the negative and x as the positive, the only positive one is going to be cosine. So cosine and secant are going to be the positive ratios, and then the other ones, whatever's left, sine and cosecant, and then also tangent and cotangent, those two different pairs will represent the negatives. So what this is really is just basically a map to give us what are all the different signs of the different ratios in all the different different quadrants here. So this is something that if I were you, I would go into the notes, maybe take a picture of this or print this one out or somehow get this available to you in the coming sections, because this will come up quite a few times, and it's good to have this little map for you to just get some quick reference.